Maria back over here. I get
You got that chair there. Thank you for taking care of me.
Somebody got to.
I know, I'm old. I know.
This is
I got one here. Hey, Dave.
Thank you.
It says the umpires bomb sometimes.
What's that? I'll take Bruce, you take Mike.
Ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, good evening. We're going to start the council meeting for August 10th, 2020. We'll begin by reciting the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. Mr. Thomas, roll call, please.
Certainly. Mr. Delaney?
Here.
Mr. Dern?
Here.
Mr. Doyle?
Happy to be here.
Mr. Hadley is absent this evening. Mr. Odom?
Present.
Mr. Pastor is also absent this evening. Mr. Bento?
Here.
Mayor Schlegel?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of July.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Doyle,
Second.
second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion, opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the expenses for the month of July.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Dern,
Second?
second by Mr. Doyle. Mr. Thomas, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you. Payables requiring council approval from the general fund, $63,616.15. Street Improvement Fund, payables requiring council approval, $7,904.92. Fire Fund, payables requiring council approval, $86,132.68. Capital Improvement Fund, payables requiring council approval, $658. Flood Mitigation Fund, payables requiring council approval, $19,656.34. EMS Fund, payables requiring council approval, $1,802.16. 2019 Bond Fund, payables requiring council approval, $495.74. And finally, purchasing card direct vendor payments for public services, $168,108.20, for total payables to be approved of $478,374.19.
Thank you, sir. Having received a motion and a second, would you approve the expenses for the month of July? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the minutes of the July 13th, 2020 council meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Dern, second by Mr. Doyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Recognition of achievements in the community. Mayor Slagle.
The only thing I have tonight is, again, I want to thank the borough staff and Vince over there for another successful movie in the park. We had 200 people that attended, most of them in cars this time. We're running a drive-in, and that's okay. Everybody seemed to have a good time, and I want to thank the borough staff for putting it all together. That's the only thing I have, sir.
Thank you, sir. Civic announcements.
Good evening. Jim Sims, Chief of Holiday Park Fire Department. I know most of you. Mr. Delaney, I don't believe you and I have ever met.
Not yet.
No. A couple of things. First, next month, September is National Preparedness Month. It's sponsored by FEMA. In the month of September, the Holiday Park Fire Department is going to be sponsoring 4 different classes beginning on Wednesday nights. Wednesday night, September 9th, from 7 to 10 p.m. We'll be sponsoring CPR and AED training. This is free classes open to the public. Because of COVID, we have to limit the training to 20 people within our building to allow for staff and the other assistant instructors. The following Wednesday, in conjunction with the Renton Volunteer Fire Department from 7 to 10 p.m., we're sponsoring a home fire safety class. Anybody who attends this class will go home with a 2-pack smoke detector. These are 10-year smoke detectors. Don't have to replace the batteries. And also, you'll go home with a home carbon monoxide alarm for your for your home. And once again, this is limited to 20 people because of COVID regulations. On Wednesday, September 23rd, from 7 to 10, this is an all-age group class where we'll be offering a first aid and stop the bleed. Upon completion, you receive your basic first aid and a stop the bleed certification. And then finally, on Wednesday, September 30th, we're having, through the Allegheny County Fire Academy, we're sponsoring the Community Fire Extinguisher Program, where individuals learn how to use the proper way to use a fire extinguisher. The Fire Academy has a fire extinguisher trainer. Everyone will have the chance to actually discharge a fire extinguisher and use it. And when you leave that evening, you'll be going home with a free home fire extinguisher to take with you. All these classes, other than the Community Fire Extinguisher Program, are open to all ages. You have to be 18 or over to attend the Community Fire Extinguisher Program because you'll actually be using an extinguisher on a trainer. To sign up for these classes, on our public Facebook page, it's going live right after this council meeting. You can sign up online. This training is free, and it's limited to the first 20 individuals who sign up for that class. So that's our way of participating in the National Preparedness Month for the month of September. On behalf of the fire department, Mr. Maital, I can't pronounce Charlie's last name, but we want to thank Charlie personally for his attention to detail and his efforts on our behalf to deal with the project that's in front of our fire station. We've met with the company. I think we've come to an agreement. We have 2 of the final 4 issues resolved, and hopefully by the end of September and through October, with the agreement, we'll have the other issues resolved. But he's been diligent. He's been a true advocate for both the borough and our fire department. We appreciate his efforts and what he's done for us. And I want to come here and publicly thank Charlie from your group for his efforts on behalf of the fire department. Finally, the Holiday Park Fire Department, our fund drive went out late this year. It's out. We held back with the number of folks who are out of work. So our fund drive has gone out. We're asking everyone to participate. My fire department is no different than the other fire department, and actually no different than any other organization as far as lack of funding from fundraisers being down. We've not conducted a bingo since March. We do not have our super bingo. We do not have our gun bash. We had to cancel our last 4 weeks of fish fry. Our hall rental has been shut down. And we just learned today from a communication from the Office of the State Fire Commissioner that Act 26 that was passed by the state legislators was supposed to be like money to support the general budgets of the volunteer fire departments throughout the state of Pennsylvania, volunteer fire departments and emergency services. The letter came out from the Office of the State Fire Commissioner today that's saying Act 26, because of the rules changed by the federal government in July, this money that we had hoped to pay the electric bills and pay other things with now have to be specific COVID-related expenses. So once again, there's monies that we were counting on, and we've come, it's going to be a shortfall in our yearly budget. So we're asking the individuals that who receive their donation letters that to please donate if you can. We asked for certain amounts, but we're not going to turn any donations away. We had a great turnout for our food truck rally yesterday at our fire station. We had a nice turnout. We plan to repeat that outside again on Sunday, September 13th, because we're really doing everything we can. Number one, we're in a budget freeze at our station. We're not allowing any unnecessary expenses. We're really watching our pennies here, so we're not unnecessarily spending. We've had a couple individuals who've actually were nice enough in our community when this first round of the stimulus checks came out, actually donated their entire stimulus checks to our fire department, We probably had 3 or 4 people who did that, and that's greatly appreciated. And if for some reason they're watching, please know that that money is not being frivolously spent. It's paying for our lights, or paying for our natural gas, our phone bills, and our utilities, so that money is appreciated. We appreciate the council and your efforts, and once again, National Preparedness Month is next month, and you're welcome to sign. Everyone's welcome to sign up. The sign up will be going live this evening on our Facebook page and also on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that update. Do we have any other civic announcements? Okay, seeing none, on to President's comments. I do not have anything specific other than an update from the Stormwater Task Force. So I'd like to just give you an overview of the last meeting that was conducted on July 23rd, 2020. We reviewed submitted applications for vacant positions on the task force. 2 residents had submitted their applications for vacant positions, and the task force discussed the information contained in their applications and has provided their recommendation to council, which will be voted on here shortly. We reviewed the status of interim solutions from the borough engineer to include the work that's being done on Nassau Drive, the Phase 2 work that had been going on to address some of the issues associated with stormwater problems in that area. That work is estimated now to be completed by the end of August, August 31st. We also went over the proposed long-term solutions. We got an update from KU Resources associated with the projects that we are working relative to a number of the stormwater issues that have impacted areas in Plum. That includes the forthcoming submittal of a grant application for the Center Beach project. That provides mitigation for stormwater issues on Unity and downstream of Anderson Avenue. There's also an initial meeting that's tentatively scheduled for August 27th with the DEP to discuss the 4 long-term stormwater projects. That includes O Block, Anderson Avenue, Center Beach, and College Avenue. We also discussed some of the stormwater work that had been completed since the last meeting on Duquesne Boulevard, Surfside, and Chaparral Drive. And then we reviewed a number of the email messages that we received in the Stormwater Task Force inbox. And I wanted to go over a couple of those and kind of talk about some of the issues that we discussed relative to the email messages we received. One was regarding a potential for conducting a survey on holding a public meeting and the development of a report on Stormwater Task Force efforts for public dissemination. The other was on the ability for the public to contribute ideas and attend meetings. Another was on a mechanism for citizens to learn more about what the task force's plan and allowing citizens to provide input on proposed projects and processes. And then there was also some discussion relative to having the public meeting. And so we talked about this at length, and one of the decisions that the task force made was due to the issues associated with the ability to disseminate information to the public about the work the task force is doing. We recognize that we issue meeting minutes after every meeting, but I think the problem is that there's been a lack of interaction between the Stormwater Task Force and concerned residents. And so as a result of that, and granted that we've had some difficulty trying to work towards establishing a public meeting, we are going to work to have a public meeting on Saturday, September 12th, where we will be going over a number of things that the Stormwater Task Force has been working on. And in addition to that public meeting, we took the recommendation that we received from one of the residents about coming up with a report. And what the task force discussed was, rather than kind of write up something that's multiple pages associated with information, it might be better to disseminate a report using like a multimedia format, something that can be played and viewed that provides information relative to the work that's being done. So we have enlisted the support of an individual. His name is Ken Rich. He's from McCormick Taylor Public Engagement Services, and we're working with him to facilitate the specific items that will go on the agenda for the public meeting. and even maybe working to see if we can enlist his services to act as a facilitator. So there's a lot of movement now going on relative to getting prepared to hold that public meeting. We certainly appreciate the patience that residents have had just based on the constraints that we've had with COVID. One of the things that we're actually going to be doing is developing a registration form for the public meeting. For those residents who want to come and participate in person, we will put that electronic sign up on the borough website so that you can go and register. We recognize we have to cap the attendance given the social distancing requirements that have been levied by state and county officials. So we'll be taking those on a first come, first served basis. And then other individuals who aren't able to attend in person, we will certainly make sure that we have the event live streamed so that you can participate over the internet. And for those who can't see it over the internet, we'll be airing that information live on our Borough TV channel. So we're really seeking to make sure that the residents are able to participate using the varying ways that we have to put that information out. But the task force recognizes it's long overdue for us to start really getting some information out and also interacting with the residents so that they have a good understanding of what's going on in the task force, and we can field their questions and concerns associated with different stormwater issues that have impacted the borough. So that's all I have for the Stormwater Task Force, and we will now move on with our agenda. Citizen comments on agenda items. I didn't
Forgot
see.
the manager's report unless he doesn't have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have
yeah,
no
did
report
skip
this
that.
evening.
Did you have a manager's report?
I do not.
Okay. Citizen comments on agenda items. No one signed up, but if there's anyone present who would like to discuss something on the agenda, now's the time for you to approach council. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to council actions. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Vento.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I move to adopt ordinance number 948-20, adopting the 2018 edition of the International Property Maintenance Code.
Motion by Mr. Vento.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I also move on behalf of the committee to adopt an ordinance 949-20, adopting an ordinance regulating abandoned and junk cars and vehicles.
We have a motion by Mr. Vento.
Second.
Second by Mr. Doyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the committee, I move to approve a conditional use for the Bonura Cabinets expansion CU-01-20 for property located at 7942 Salzburg Road as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Motion by Mr. Vento.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the committee, I move to approve the modification to section 725.B.1 of the subdivision and land development ordinance for the Bonura Cabinets expansion project. The modification allows the ADA parking space to be less than a required 10 feet. Excuse me, your computer just lost me. Okay, I got it. 10 feet from the building.
Motion by Mr. Vento.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Doyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Also, on behalf of the committee, move to approve the Bonura Cabinets expansion, SP-01-20, as recommended by the Planning Commission and the final review and borough approval of the borough engineer.
Motion by Mr. Vento.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Also, on behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I move to reaffirm the appeal of the Zoning Hearing Board decision, ZHB-20-3, of July 21st, 2020.
We have a motion by Mr. Vento.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, that's the end of my report for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Vento. On behalf of the Personnel and Management Committee, Mr. Hadley is absent. Who's taking up Mr. Hadley's?
Mr. Doyle, Mr. Delaney.
Mr. Doyle? Mr. Delaney?
Sure, I'll do it for Mr. Headley. On behalf of the Personnel Management Committee, I move to approve the COLA for a retired police officer as recommended by the Borough Actuary.
Motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve a COLA for a second retired police officer as recommended by the Borough Actuary.
Motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Delaney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve the employment and compensation conditions for the Assistant Chief of Police.
We have a motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the committee, I also move to make an offer of a conditional hire to Gerald Vargo for the position of a position in the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
There was one other agenda item that we are, I moved to table. Does that need to be voted on, Mr.?
We have a motion by Mr. Doyle to
I'll
table
second
an
it.
agenda item.
Okay.
He's a second.
Yeah,
Seconded
gotcha.
by Mr.
I
Vento.
know I wasn't here last month. But yeah.
The employment of a second employee.
Yeah, the item's an employment of a second Public Works employee. So we have a motion by Mr. Doyle, second by Mr. Vento. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And on behalf of the Personnel Management Committee, I move to appoint Mr. Bill Chapla to the Stormwater Task Force.
Motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded with discussion.
Seconded by Mr. Dern with discussion. Proceed, sir.
Excuse me. Going by his, I've talked to him, I've gone by his application word for word, and he was concerned with the Pine Valley flooding, and I hope that that will change and he'll be worried about the entire borough. I've discussed that with him numerous times, and I brought it up before. I have a problem with the I and not the we, but I will vote for him, and hopefully that will come to what it should be.
Now, thank you for that comment, and I'm sure Mr. Chapel, I don't know if he's here, but if he's, there you are, sir, yes, sir. Certainly welcome your participation on the task force. Having residents on this task force is extremely important. We're looking forward to your contributions and your input. So, okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Doyle and seconded by Mr. Dern to appoint Mr. Bill Chapel to the Stormwater Task Force Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that concludes the Personnel and Management Committee. On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, Mr. Delaney.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of Parks and Recs Committee, I move to authorize a Borough Haps fundraiser for local businesses.
We have a motion by Mr. Delaney.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Vento. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On behalf of the Finance Committee, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Finance Committee, I move to adopt Resolution Number 883-20, supporting the CARES Act grant.
Motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On behalf of the Finance Committee, I also move to authorize Plum EMS to participate in the Borough 2020 VFG Lease Financing Program for new capital equipment purchases.
Motion by Mr. Doyle.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Dern. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes council actions. We will now move on to the mayor's report. Mayor Slagle.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. In the month of July, we had 975 calls for service through the police department. That is again below our average, but it is picking up. And the thing that everybody likes is the ATS radar display. We put it out there on New Texas Road at 4540 New Texas from the month of June through July, and 62,357 vehicles traveled one way on New Texas Road. The highest speed was some idiot doing 63 mile per hour in a 30 mile an hour zone.
Was he in a Corvette?
No, he was not.
Just gray one?
It had, I think
gray
it was
one?
Dice
Yeah.
if it was anybody.
I'm just checking.
On Abers Creek, these numbers always astound me. Again, from June through, the end of June through July, 35,801 vehicles went down Abers Creek Road. And again, the speed limit going down there is 25 mile an hour, and some idiot had to do 59. And again, my offer still stands. Please come on in or contact me, come on in. We have a nice certificate for those individuals who like to speed on our roads. It's called a traffic citation. On Shear Road, I thought this traffic would drop, the volume would drop once they opened Halton Road. Again, in a 30-day period, one direction, that's all this ATS tracks, 123,214 vehicles on Shear Road. And some idiot had to do 60 mile an hour on that short little street. On Oak Road in Renton, again, for a month, 1,010 vehicles. There was good news. They actually went below the speed limit. Usually the ATS radar sign slows people down, but then you get some people who like to go out there and just prove the sign wrong or something. We had some special project details that our police participated in. On July 8th, officers Brent and Polanski, there are two new officers, drove by the troop residence on Maple Street with their lights and sirens to recognize the troop's daughter Jessie's accomplishments of graduating from a technical college, a technical school here, where she majored in criminal justice. On July 12th, our Plum Police Department helped organize and participate in a first responders parade for Joey's 8th birthday. Now, Joey is an 8-year-old boy from Cuyahoga Drive and attends Civic Elementary. Joey suffers, and I'm going to screw this up, B-cell acute lymphoplastic leukemia. And they stopped and they spoke with Joey. All these things are good PR for the police department. And particularly during this time where people are not able to get out and not able to maintain celebrations as we would in the past. The other things I'd like to note is that we've had several thoughtful citizens, and this is always appreciated. The Valentine family on Salzburg Road brought in a large cookie tray on July 3rd to show the family's appreciation to our police department. On July 18th, Mark Reed provided a lunch to any of the Plum police officers working the day shift who stopped by the Pittsburgh Smokehouse food truck during a neighborhood yard sale on Vale Drive. On July 24th, Mrs. Bedaldi, if I mispronounced it, I apologize, and wish to express the organization's gratitude to show support for the Plum Police Department, and they provided dinner for the department. All these things, and last one, on July 29th, Valerie Mistay of the Valerie Mistay State Farm Insurance Agency provided $20 gift cards to each of our Plum police officers. And if you're not aware of that, we have 27 of them now. The police appreciate it all, and Chief Conley and myself want to thank those individuals for their thoughtfulness. There's no need to do that, although it is very much appreciated. And some of our officers look like they ate a lot of the cookies. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to committee reports, the Intergovernmental Cooperative Committee with the Plum School District. I have not been contacted recently to have any specific meetings, but when the school district calls, we certainly will entertain the need to meet with them. On behalf of the Finance Committee, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee for August 12, 2020, the general fund highlights for the month of July. The Borough recognized revenues totaling $957,286,000 and incurred expenses in the amount of $1,123,816. Regarding the revenues, to date, we have received $2,190,000 in current year earned income tax revenues, and this represents 57% of the adopted budget. During the month of July, our borough received $19,578 under the state's Marcellus Shale Impact Fees collections. A total of $49,353 was received against the Regional Asset District revenue line, and it is currently at 60% of budget. Overall, revenues continue to trend as anticipated with the uncertainties resulting from the pandemic. Our expenditures for the month. Through the month of July, the borough has expended 55% of the budget, which equates to $7.36 million. From a departmental standpoint, we have no current budget concerns, and expenditures are tracking as expected. The borough processed its first draw against the 2020 TAN, the tax anticipation note totaling $300,000, and it is projected that the borough most likely will not have to draw against the TAN for future funds. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. We are now moving on to roads, equipment, and grounds. I know Mr. Pastor is absent. I didn't know if he left his report. If not, then we will move on to public safety. Mr. Dern.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Mr. Maloney, he's here tonight to give the Plum Emergency Medical Services report for the month. Brian, please.
All right, thank you. Brian Maloney, Director of Operations, Plum EMS. It's great to see all of you here this evening. It's been several months since I've had an opportunity to come and talk, but tried to do as much as I could with the Zoom meetings, which was very creative and worked out, I thought, pretty well. For the month of July, Plum EMS responded to a total of 261 calls or requests. We ended up transporting 136 patients. With our call volume, it definitely took a hit back in March and April. At one point in time for April, we were down 44% for our patients transported to the hospital. So just like everybody else, we kind of had to adapt and overcome, which my colleague Joe Fest has done a spectacular job. We've received both federal, state, county, and local support, and it's gone a long way, and it's helped us out tremendously. I may have mentioned in previous reports that we've even had people wave us down on the side of the road and hand us N95 masks for us to use. So all those little things have gone such a long way, and we appreciate that support. We do. For the responded to other communities in July, we ended up doing that 28 times in the month of July, with 17 of those resulting in a transport to the hospital. And we ended up needing mutual aid coming into Plum 11 times throughout the month, which that was about 4.7% of the time people needed EMS in Plum that we had to call in our backup. But we do have a good backup system in place, and it helped us out pretty well. Unfortunately, our responses to potential COVID patients are still happening. And it's the kind of thing, Allegheny County 911 does an amazing job trying to screen the calls to figure out what's considered a higher risk. And our crews, when we get that information, we respond appropriately. That is to make sure we take care of ourselves, our patient, and those people around us. I can't speak highly enough for the crew members and how far they're going to make sure they take those safety precautions. We even have a system in place when we get to the hospitals. After we do patient transfer, they go and it's basically like a spray painter, but it's full of disinfectant. And they literally plug it in and spray the trucks down, let it sit for a couple minutes, wipe it down real quick, and it's ready for the next patient. So we found the best ways to be efficient and be able to be ready for that next patient to take care. So we appreciate everything that people have done, and thank you very much. So any questions, comments, gripes, concerns, complaints? Very good. Thank you.
Keep up the good work, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Also, the Public Safety Committee met about a week ago, and we've been having an inordinate amount of speeding complaints throughout the borough. So we're going to do a couple things. One is Mr. Delaney has volunteered. He has a map of the borough, and he is going to go through the GIS system, and he's going to identify all the stop signs, crosswalks, and we're going to get together after we do that, and we're going to prioritize high, medium, and low of things we can do. We're going to try to go through police reports, police citations, go through traffic data, complaints from residents, and try to come up with a comprehensive plan of what we can do to sort of put a nix in this. But also to piggyback on what the mayor said, if anyone out there would like to have the police respond and sit in your driveway and sort of sit there and watch cars go by to try to, find out if they're speeding, call me, call the mayor. We'll gladly, we have a traffic division, and Officer DeMarco would like nothing more than to stop people from speeding through the borough. And we also have the speed sign that we put up everywhere, so if you would like to request that somewhere, call the mayor, call myself, and we'll work on getting that done. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Dern. On behalf of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, Mr. Vento.
Thanks, Mr. President. During the month of July, there were 92 permits issued and $13,183 in revenue. Planning Commission met, and so did the Zoning Hearing Board. Some numerous items there, but we already allowed four of the things that they were talking about to be approved tonight, so that's a moot point. And they had many meetings this month, just highlighting a few that I think are the most important. They had a pre-construction meeting for the Penteco project on Old Leechburg Road. They met with Duquesne Light to look at lighting issues on the intersection of New Texas Road and Route 286, which is a dark spot. If you've ever been out there late at night, even with the light, you would think the light would be bright with the four-way traffic light. But leading up to it, it's very dark, so that's good to hear. The new lights are not only brighter, but they're more energy efficient. So, I think it's a good thing we can get them changed throughout our community. They had a conference call with the Port Authority. They had a conference call with the Turnpike consultants on road closures and traffic detours, and also one with the Port Authority concerning bus detours. I understand the Port Authority wasn't, from what Mr. Zabosley told me, and I had a conversation with him on this issue, along with a few others, that the Port Authority wasn't really interested in hearing any gripes or complaints we had about buses going through Regency Park. Now, I understand that is their right, and it is a temporary thing. At least act like you're concerned enough to, to at least listen to what we have to say. I thought it was very, unprofessional of them the way Mr. Zabosley said they were treated. It's on the phone, it's not in person or anything, but just bad form. So it's my 2 cents worth on that. And we had numerous housing plan issues, and some of these you want to hear about because they're good and problematic too. Autumn Ridge, they were getting ready, proof-rolled to paving and roadway width issues. They had to check on the width. I guess there was some issue with that.
It was actually Parkside. So the first one is Parkside Estates.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Autumn Ridge.
The treatment is Autumn Ridge. It's a typo.
Okay.
But yes, they phase one proof roll. So that's been completed.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. Chevelle Estates is planning their final paving. Colonial Point is preparing for the dedication of roads and storm ponds. Green Valley Estates had deed issues related to roads, right-of-way. And Oakmont Heights, Phase 1 paving issues. So, this is all part of this, and what I'm going to talk about at the end here is all part of what the Planning and Economic Development Committee does. It's not just, talking about good things. It's a lot of nuts and bolts stuff that you don't hear about or see behind the scenes go on every month. Code enforcement issues. Now, this is something that everybody says, why don't they get out and look? What are they doing? They must be not going out. But there are 74 occupancy inspections. Demolitions hearings were held on July 27th. We approved four demolitions just earlier this month. And 32 violations, including junk and debris, dangerous structures, vacant structures, erosion control, and high grass and weeds. Talked about removing illegal signs located in the right-of-way. Well, they actually removed those signs. And monthly street light inspections were completed on July 9th. Somebody goes around and checks to see what street lights are on so they can be called to have them replaced. Fire-related call on July 26th at Unity Center Apartments. I guess there was a code enforcement issue with that leading up to that or after that. So ordinance issues, staff is working with the borough engineer on an update to the existing grading ordinance, which, as we all know, grading is a big issue with the stormwater management, so glad to see that too. And the holiday miscellaneous items also, the Holiday Park Phase 1 storm sewer bidding issues. So it's there again, we're working on this another stormwater issue that's being worked on. everybody is worried, and me especially, about the recent flooding, but some of this stuff is ongoing problems, and they're being addressed in the normal budgetary process. And I just want everybody to let you know that that still goes on a day-to-day basis just about here in the borough. That's a very big thing that the Public Works Department does. And staff also work with KU Resources to complete and submit a flood mitigation grant for the center. So for the center project, it should be, yeah. Center project was one of the ones, and we'll be getting into that more with this next stormwater. When we do the public meeting, you'll be able to see pictures, I believe, of all of the projects that are proposed. And this, along with many others to come, are going to be grants for these issues on flooding. So Plum Boro is doing a lot. We're doing a lot of stuff, nuts and bolts. Actually, construction on the actual flood projects now, the new ones. There isn't a lot of that yet, but there will be shortly. So, you know, get ready, because you're going to be seeing a lot of changes if you look around. Not necessarily out front of the roads, but in back to help people not get flooded out at their homes. So we are working on it, and we're moving forward. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vento. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Hodem. Not too much going on in Parks and Recreation due to the COVID. You know, general maintenance, general cleaning. They set up for the movies at the park up at Larry Mills Park. They also were up there watering the grass to help with the long stretch of hot days. Nothing much going on at the facilities either. So really, I just wanted to say that, you know, there are still some sports league active. There is some recreational baseball, softball going on out there right now. As we've seen from Governor Wolf and others, you know, some of these organizations are kind of shutting whole leagues down. Right now, we're not doing anything here in Plum, but I ask anybody that's involved in those sporting leagues, please be mindful of the COVID guidelines. Please wear masks. Please keep your distance from each other. Please do your part so we don't have to shut down sports here in Plum. We would love to see it continue, but if it's going to start a cluster, if it's going to put other people in danger, we can't allow those things. So if everybody does their part, worries about their own safe and staying safe, you know, we can still finish up and have some good fall ball. So that's it for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney. The Planning Commission will not meet in August, and this brings us now to citizen comments on non-agenda items. I do have 4 individuals who signed up to speak. The first is Ms. Leanne Weiss. Just state your name and your address.
Sure. Good evening. My name's Leanne Weiss, and I live at 425 Vale Drive. Good evening to everyone. I'm here tonight to express my concerns about Mayor Harry Schlegel and Councilman Doyle, who publicly attacked a school board member, Amy Wetmore, at a recent council meeting, calling for her resignation. This was regarding a comment that she made on the Black Lives Matter in Plum Boro Facebook page. I support Ms. Wetmore's efforts to educate our predominantly white community about implicit bias and privilege. I applaud her efforts as both a private citizen and a school board member to actively engage with her neighbors to help make Plum Boro a more welcoming community for people of all backgrounds. I was dismayed to see our mayor on WTAE saying that I am tired of systemic racism. There is no systemic racism as far as I'm concerned. He then looked at Mr. Ingram, a black reporter, and said, but you may have a different opinion. If you are incapable of seeing community problems, then how can you even begin to address them? Mr. Schlegel's own bias and prejudice is problematic. His performative outrage is laughable, as Mr. Schlegel has expressed his views publicly at school board meetings about the wrong people moving into our community. On his office door at the tax collection office, he had offensive materials about President Obama and Muslims. He has also shared anti-Muslim rhetoric on his personal Facebook page. I find it ironic that he would criticize Ms. Wetmore for her comments that were ultimately in the spirit of education when his own actions have no redeeming value. Black lives matter in Plum Boro. This is not to say that only Black lives matter, but that Black lives matter also. I personally want all of the people of color who live in and around our community to feel welcome and to be treated fairly and with respect. In the short time that Black Lives Matter in Plum Boro's Facebook page has been active, we have heard local residents as they have shared their stories. We can no longer turn a blind eye and sit silent as our fellow residents experience discrimination as a result of bigotry. Plum has a far way to go, and we can and must do better. This includes calling out our public officials who do not represent everyone. Mr. Schlegel, if you are tired and cannot see the problems that we are facing, perhaps it's time for you to step aside. I ask Mr. Odom, as council president, to investigate these concerns, as I'm not the only one who feels this way in Plum. As a community, we must feel confident in the borough's leadership, including the mayor. Thank you for your time tonight.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I ask you to defend your comments there, please, on my
Absolutely.
racist comments? Please defend it on Muslims, please.
Well,
Please defend your comments.
Hold on, wait a minute.
I'm not
It's
sure what you mean, sir.
it's public comment, not public debate.
Not a public
So-
debate.
so
She has
she's-
a First
she's-
Amendment right to bring up these things.
I-
However, I have a right not to be slandered, and I'd like to know the comments that you're saying I made, please. I'm not looking to debate. I just would like clarification. Please.
I don't have documentation in front of me, but I personally have seen photographs of things that
Oh.
were posted on your door as tax collector and things that were posted on your personal Facebook page that were.
Wait a minute, my personal, please, give me a specific example. Would you like me to give you the one that was posted on my door?
Sure.
Sure,
If
okay.
you would like.
We are advised not to judge all Muslims by the actions of a few lunatics, but we are encouraged to judge all gun owners by the actions of a few lunatics. How is that statement racist or against Muslims? Just please, it's a question I ask. How is that? I'm asking for clarification on it. That is my comment that was on my door, okay?
Okay, I find it interesting that you had that in front of you to read tonight. Thank you.
I know what I published on my door.
Oh, thank you. Well, I do have here, I guess it was a meme that you shared on your Facebook page in regards to 9/11, and it was slanderous towards Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
You mean the one which has said,
Ileana
New York
Omar.
forgot, New York forgot 9/11, New York forgot, Michigan forgot, California
No,
forgot?
actually, Mayor.
This is so if you
Actually,
don't give a
Mayor.
shit about socialists, Muslims.
Okay,
or
let's please
triggered
refrain
snowflakes.
from using profanity.
Okay, I'm
in the
just
public.
Sorry, he
This
was
was-
quoting the mayor's post,
I
just so
understand.
we're clear.
I all I asked was to defend it, so
This was
we're,
not my language. This is what Mr. Schlegel
okay, go
chose
back to the
share.
first comment about the Muslims. How was my question racist or attacking Muslims?
I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that that's the language that.
That
we
is the
use.
language. I can show you to you. That is the language.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Anybody like to see the language? I got a copy here. It says, "We are advised not," in capital letters, "to judge all Muslims by the actions of a few lunatics."
The problem with
But
that
we are
statement
encouraged to
is
judge
that
all
you're
gun
implying
owners.
that you're
Please be
judging
quiet.
Muslims by those actions. That's the
Wait a
problem
minute.
with that
Wait a
statement.
minute.
Okay,
Wait.
okay, all right.
It's a question, damn
Like
it.
I said, public comment, not public debate.
Okay,
Anyway,
I
I ask you to
appreciate
defend.
the
Thank you.
time to be able to express my views and my comments tonight. And I am concerned, especially in seeing Mr. Schlegel being interviewed on a public television station here, in terms of how it made Plum Boro look, having our mayor declare that there's no systemic racism in a time where we are seeing people being murdered live on television for the color of their skin, and we have someone saying we don't have a problem with race. I think
didn't say we didn't have a problem with race, and I didn't say we didn't have any racist in Plum Boro or in anywhere. I did not make that statement.
Well, what
What
I'd
I
like to see
disagreed
as a
with was the
citizen-
term systemic. Do you understand the term systemic?
Yes,
I understand the
what
term
systemic
racism, and we do have racists. I'm sure we have racists
Okay,
in Plum. Every community does.
I'm going to shut this part down. Ma'am, thank you
very
for your
much, Mr.
comments.
Odom. And I'd also like to personally thank the organization, or the women that are also here with me tonight that were a part of Black Lives Matter. Mr. Schlegel mentioned Mrs. Badali by name, but our group actually was the group that sponsored the lunch for the police officers, because we feel that it's important to work with the police. And I just wanted to also state that it was that organization as a group of concerned citizens and mothers who put that together, and I just want to thank them for their support of our recent event, as well as Mr. Odom and other community members who came out to share and learn with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I do want to just express a couple of ground rules and comments. When we have public comment, it is the opportunity for the public to comment. I certainly do think that it's appropriate for the mayor to have an opportunity to defend accusations that are made against him, and I don't want to not allow him to make those comments or those statements. But I do want to keep the dialogue constructive. I do want to move the meeting along, and I don't want it to turn into a circus of comments and arguments. You can continue to have those on social media, but I'm not going to allow the council meeting to be the forum that we use to conduct those discussions and arguments. So with that, we'll move on to the next individual, Miss Amy Badali.
Hi, it's Badali. My in-laws just make me say that.
Thank
Been
you.
here 45 years, we're still trying. I'm Amy Badali. I live at 526 Cresthaven in Edgemead. I'm not going to elaborate on anything that Leanne said. I really just, there's been a lot going on, and I am not a person who likes to be in front of people. I've lived here 44 years and have never done this. But there's a lot that's been going on recently that has affected me. And when I reached out to others, it was also affecting them. So I just have a short statement. I've worked for Allegheny County Department of Human Services for 18 years. Each week, county staff receive emails and participate in trainings on racism, equity, inclusion, and diversity. The goal is to ensure that all of our clients receive the same quality of care. A few years ago, the county formed the Equity and Inclusion Committee and is committed to a system of equity, and they recognize the social and structural differences that are deeply embedded in the fabric of society. This recognition acknowledges the following: all people are individuals, but they are also members of social groups. These social groups are valued unequally in society, and social groups that are valued more highly have greater access to resources. The goal of equity is to address the disparities that occur because of unequal access so that each individual, regardless of social identity, has an opportunity to succeed. In recent months, I've been contacted by many residents in response to a Facebook post I made in response to public and blatant racism on Facebook. In response, I, along with some other mothers within the community, formed Black Lives Matter in Plum Boro. We formed this to work to better understand the structural and systemic racism in Plum and how it affects the people of color in our community. The Facebook group is open to all residents and former residents. We share articles, podcasts, books, and trainings to facilitate open discussion to help us better understand how we can be a part of combating racism in Plum. With that said, I'm here to ask if council has plans to form an equity and inclusion committee similar to Allegheny County, as we are part of Allegheny County. And I'm offering our assistance as the Black Lives Matter in Plum Boro if you look to create a committee like this. We are very open to joining you. I know there's a lot of other citizens who have reached out to me and reached out on the page and said that they want to be a part of it. There's some stories that I've heard that I don't love. I mentioned at the school board meeting too that, I've lived here my whole life. My parents lived here. I met my husband at Plum High School. We've stayed here. We've bought a house on Miller's Lane. We moved to Edgemead. We've been here because we love Plum and our family's here and we want to be close to our family. But I didn't know what was happening 2 streets over from my parents' street when I was 13 and somebody was being beat up at their front door and a cross was burning on their front lawn. And I know some of you, when I was in high school, were on council and were still around. I remember the names. So these are continuous things. And Chief Connolly and I have talked numerous times. He has been great, and we are setting up a meeting so that we can talk with him, how we can help them. And I want to bring to him some of the stories that we're hearing so that they can better understand, because, again, it's our white privilege that's showing us that we don't see it. I was there. I called my parents after I talked to these people, and I said, "Did you know this was happening over there at such and such's house?" And they're like, what are you talking about? That wasn't happening. And we had the privilege of ignoring that, and we didn't know. It wasn't in the advance leader. It wasn't anywhere. But when I talked to these people, they said it wasn't polite to talk about it. And that's not acceptable to me anymore as a parent here. And I don't want my children to feel that that's okay. So I'm hoping that we can work together with council. I would love to be a part of that. Typically, I don't love to be a part of anything like this, but I am more than willing. My sister is raising an African-American child in Penn Trafford School District, so she is going to be facing these same things. And if I got to move over to Penn Trafford after Plum, I'm on it. Mayor, I brought you a shirt for hopefully we'll be working together soon. And we get a shirt for next time.
Thank you.
You can
Thank you.
meet up with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Amy Wetmore.
Hi, I'm Amy Wetmore. It's nice to meet most of you, as I've never had a conversation with the majority of you sitting there. I'm actually, 834 Unity Center Road. Not that part. I think I'd know that. I'm here tonight as a citizen of Plum Boro, and nothing more, nothing less. And I wanted to share with you some numbers that I think are important. Now, granted, the most current data I could find were demographics from 2017, so there may have been some shift. But at that point, there were about 27,000 people living in our community. 7% of them identified as non-white. That may seem like a small percentage, but that's almost 1,900 people living here in our community that identify as something other than white. 60% of our community identifies as religious. Of that 60%, 4% of them are non-Christian. That means Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever else. 40% of our community doesn't identify as religious at all. 2% of our community under the age of 65 identifies as disabled. That number equals about 540. Again, a percentage that seems small, but if you put 540 people in this room, that's a crowded room. I'm here tonight, much like Mrs. Badali, and I thank both Mrs. Weiss and Mrs. Badali for their support. But I'm here to implore council to consider forming a committee to look into diversity, inclusion, and equity within our community. That committee doesn't need to focus solely on race, though that is obviously the most important issue we're facing in our society at this moment. But we do need to make sure that we are meeting the needs of all of our community, and that includes any marginalized group. So that's why I'm here in front of you tonight. I would implore you to consider. The school district has formed such a committee. We are reaching out to family and community for their participation, and we'd love for some of you to stop by. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. And finally, we have Mr. Lloyd, is it Zeiset?
Yeah.
Sir?
It's shifting gears here. We're not. I just new in the neighborhood, and I live on Jackson Road, and the ordinances that were newly passed tonight, they go into effect right away, I guess. The
Yeah,
ones that,
after tonight.
yeah, after tonight. So the question
Might be the end of the month, I'm not exactly sure, but it's approved now, so it will go into effect as soon as it says.
Since I live on Jackson Road, and there's several vehicles that are there that are not, that's been like a couple of years
Any
since
day
they
now.
were registered. And we put little notice on their windshield wipers this past week, suggesting that the Humane League will take, people can donate vehicles. There's opportunities that people have if they need to get rid of vehicles, and they can take a tax credit. It's like a nonprofit. And I was just asking if you could say to us as citizens what might be the best way to go about to get action on vehicles that are just sitting there like junk vehicles.
I would say as a citizen, call the borough building, leave a message on the JOT forms. It's the borough JOT forms is for complaints and stuff like that. You can go to, when you go into the queue for what numbers to dial, there's a link to that, I believe. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong.
You can actually go on the borough website and just click the Borough Connect JOT form, or you can dial 412.
What's it called?
The Borough Connect, the Borough Connect jot form. It's a
Job,
Jot.
G-O-T.
J-O-T.
J-O-T.
It's a form to request assistance from the borough, whether you're reporting something or whether you need assistance with something.
Okay, so we do that. Now, will the borough call back to the citizen that put the request in and let them know will there be communication happen?
We do not
No.
report to residents on other residents' citations and.
No,
and
I'm not talking
activity.
about the citations, but I'm just saying, would you report back and say, look, we're taking care of it, we saw that? Because a lot of times, we don't hear anything, vehicle is still sitting there, and it's like, did they even get my message? You know, because sometimes things happen where messages get lost. I'm just saying, it would be wise if there would be a little bit of feedback and say, we got your report, action, you know, you don't have to say a citation, but you could say, action is going to be taken, we will take care of it.
Well, I can't guarantee that action will be taken if they're not violating anything. Sometimes people think there's a violation, we investigate it, it may or may not be a violation. You can call the department at any time and ask about the status of a particular incident. You can call and ask if the particular incident at X, Y,
So
Z
we have to
address.
call
You can
again
call
if we
anytime
want
and
to
get a
find.
status update, yes, you
Yeah.
can. We can confirm that there's been a citation issued or an advisement letter issued or a notice of violation issued, but we can't give you any details or information on
No,
the
I
specifics of
understand that, you know, there's certain amount of things that are private, but there's some, you know, a lot of times citations are public too. I mean,
Mike,
that's
do we
okay.
have a abandoned vehicle ordinance? I know a lot of communities do. Do we have something like that?
We just passed one.
Pass one to me.
Okay, sorry. Because to answer your question, if that vehicle has no current tags, no current sticker, and
It's
its
been that way
insurance,
for
it's
2
abandoned.
years.
I don't care. We've had people make statements like it's an antique and I'm working on it, but they haven't touched the car in years. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What concerns me is lack of communication, because what happened to me, I'm new in the area. I just moved and built a new house in Jacksonville. I moved here, and they replaced the stormwater pipe because it was clogged, but nobody announced that they're coming out to replace it. They didn't say anything. I'm 230 miles east in Lancaster, and when I get back 2 weeks later after we had to sell our house on the internet because of whatever, public
Yeah.
auction, that's another story. But I come back, they replaced the pipe, and then my mailbox was bent. Somebody must have leaned or whatever, I don't know. Thankfully, Susan, I spoke with her, she said, we'll look into it. So the Friday morning, the borough truck, road maintenance crew, whatever, Public Works, that's right, I got the right name. And then they came and replaced with a new black mailbox. But my old mailbox disappeared. I like to keep a spare mailbox in case when the snow gets deep and a snow plow hits it, I have a spare mailbox. And the mailbox I put on there was brand new, custom built, customized with my name on it. It was bronze. Now I got a nice shiny black one that they put on. But there was no communication. That was frustrating to me because my wife said I got to go check and make sure the letter's in it and the flag's up. Because, you know, and so I do appreciate the action that was taken, but then I would have liked if they would have said, hey, do you want your old mailbox? I'm guessing it disappeared. So they took it. It's probably, who knows where it is, in a trash or whatever. I don't know. But it's just that it was disappointing that there was no communication. I come out my front porch to drink my coffee, and they're the Public Works guys just got done. I said, thank you for the work. But again,
Understood.
communication is so important before you come out and do something, I think it's, important to do that.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the comments, and we're certainly endeavoring to, improve on our communication when it comes to the use of our new job form system. We're looking to try to develop service level agreements. It's just there's so many different types of things that we can be dealing with from any given resident relative to the sense of urgency that we address the problem, as well as the ability to get back to the resident on a particular issue. So we're working with that. We're working with Mike Thomas and his staff, and we're certainly appreciate the feedback that you provided.
I do want my mailbox back, though, I think, if they find it. Thanks, yeah.
It's only junk mail and bills, really.
Yeah, I know. There's a few checks coming, too.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that's the last individual who signed up. I certainly won't stop anyone who may desire to come up who didn't sign up. Yes, sir.
Bill Chaplin, 694 Pine Valley Drive. Thank you for selecting me to the task force. Of course, I haven't said anything over the past few months about it. But if there's any additional information you can give me so I can come prepared, that'd be greatly appreciated. You guys talked about maps, the streams around the area. If there's any types of studies that I can look at, so, because I don't want to hold up the progress of, what you guys accomplished today.
Clean out your inbox.
Okay, that's fine. Well, you got my information, so I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Okay, last item for the good of Plum.
If I may, Mr. Owen, first.
Yes, sir.
Since public comment is closed, I'd like to make a comment since Ms. Weiss brought up my name in her remarks. All I said simply the last meeting was, and I'm going to have to paraphrase here. I don't have the actual Facebook post or social media post in front of me. But all I said was, I read Ms. Wetmore's comment, and as it read, basically, and I paraphrase, if you're white in this country, then you're a racist. All I stated was that in and of itself is a racist statement. That was all I said, and I stand by it. So I just wanted to reply to that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd also like to say something. Just, on this matter again, just so everybody knows, and I want to make this clear, what the mayor and Mr. Doyle say about their own comments doesn't reflect how I feel or what I say. I am a proud member of the Black Lives Matter team, and although not a founding member, but I don't have time because of my work I do now to go to the meetings like I would like. But I was able to attend the Black Lives Matter demonstration, whatever we want to call it. We had it at Boyce Park. It was very well attended by the members, and by Mr. Odom was there, and I thought his speech, as well as a couple others that were there, speakers, were very, very eye-opening. And I'm older than all of you here, except for Harry, excuse me. And
I was waiting for that.
And I just want to say, I've been through the 60s in Penn Hills, and crosses were burnt on my neighbors' yards in Jefferson Highlands. What was the new plan of the time. And, I knew it happened, but I didn't understand the ramifications of it at the time. Ended up getting into a very serious accident one night, and I shattered my shoulder, and I was in some kind of shock, and hit a telephone pole, and I managed to get out of the car and walked across the street and I guess passed out in this lady's yard. And here she was, when I did wake up, she put a blanket over me and everything, and I was like trying to put it over my head. I said, hey, I'm not dead, But she was just trying to treat me for shock, it turns out. But here she was the wife of the person that had the cross burnt on their lawn, So that was I'd like to say that was the start of my awakening into these matters. And you don't know it, even now, I find myself sometimes reverting to things I shouldn't think about people when I see it on TV, because sometimes it's just so pervasive you get tired of seeing it. But until you live like an African American person, till you live like they do and go through the problems they go through daily, you can't understand what's being said at these demonstrations or even at this meeting until I heard it, right in front of me. It was very, very enlightening. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
I have something I'd like to say. you know, I've been watching this unfold for the last month, the discussion between the people that are upset about Amy's comments, the people that are upset about what the mayor has posted. And I've come up with 4 words that I think I really need to stress to everybody. And those 4 words are do better, get involved. We can all do better by being more radically kind to people. We can do kindness recklessly. We can open our hearts and have these tough dialogues and these tough questions about these things. When we see statements like all white people are racist, instead of getting defensive and saying, I'm not racist, we can say, I wonder why they're making that comment. I wonder what the science behind those statements are. We can look into it. We can do our research. We can take trainings on institutional racism. If anybody on this council wants to go, I'll go with you. I've taken several of them. They're very enlightening. Because like Mr. Vento said, if you don't see it through their eyes, you have no idea. And then the second point there is get involved. If you're concerned, do what these citizens did. Show up and do something. Do what Mr. Chappell has done. Be vocal about your complaints. Let us know what our shortcomings are. Talk to us about it. Get involved. If you're not happy with Amy on school board, if you're not happy with the mayor on election, get active, get involved. There's committee meetings for Republicans and Democrats. Come out, get involved. You want to sit up here and be part of it? Do it. That's why I'm sitting here. I was tired of what was going on. I was tired of the leadership in this borough, and I did something about it. I got involved, and here I am, part of the solution, not the problem. So that's what I challenge everybody. Do better, get involved.
Thank you, sir. Other comments? So a lot of dialogue, which is extremely important given the subject matter. I certainly am no stranger to having been impacted by racism as an African American man. I don't choose to have that define my life or my character, and I continue to move forward and work to be the best individual that I can be. The one thing that I would impress upon each and every one of you, whether you're sitting in this room or watching over the broadcast, is that at the end of the day, you know, we may be white, we may be black, we may be other nationalities, colors of creed, but at the end of the day, we're neighbors. We are neighbors.
Here, here.
We're neighbors in Plum Boro. We should respect one another, and we should learn to love one another. That's what my Christian background has always taught me, and that's what I would continue to impress upon each and every one of you, because that's how I choose to live my life. So with that, I'll entertain a moment to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly motioned and seconded that we adjourn. Thank you very much for attending.
Either one.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.